Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
What he's doing on a 5-day basis, and when he pitches at that ballpark, there's one thing you notice: there's not one empty seat.
The excitement he's brought to that city, and the fact that fans are starting to come back, especially on the nights he pitches, I mean, it is so cool to see. It's so overdue, and you can't help but root for Pittsburgh.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
As of July 22nd, we start a new deal with a monster distribution platform called SportsGrid, and we'll be live every day on national radio on SiriusXM channel 159, and we will be live on their national television platform every day from 10 a.m. till noon.
Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to hour number 2, live right here on the early line on SportsGrid. New week, new money. Donnie Rightside is here to say that, as am I. I am Ben Stevens. 2 more hours to go up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. A lot of basketball coming your way in this second hour, following All-Star Weekend in Phoenix for the WNBA. Our guy Charlie Hulme joins us in just a couple of moments to look back at the weekend at Royal Troon. Charlie on In-Game Live over the weekend, Donnie, both Saturday and Sunday morning, to take you through the Open. We'll hear how his experience was. He had a robust guest list, and of course, Xander Schauffele standing atop all of those golfers in Scotland this week, his second major championship of the season. All of that and plenty more here in this second hour.
No, it's going to be fun, too. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be talking some NBA action, which means really the Olympics at this point getting that primer, because enough with watching some of these upstart games. And by the way, I know we're going to talk about this, and maybe like I should be scrolling down here on the rundown of what we have, but I was surprised by a couple scores this weekend in the basketball realm, which we're going to talk about next year. So we got a lot to get through, a lot to try to decipher, and once every 4 years, man, it's the Olympics here in the summer. We're going to try to get after it and find out if Team USA really is the best of the bunch in both women's and men's basketball.
It was a bad weekend, a not so good, very bad weekend for both of the U.S. national teams that are going to Paris starting this week in hopes of winning yet another gold medal. The American men in an exhibition match on Saturday almost lost to South Sudan. A game-changing, a nation-changing event for South Sudan in the exhibition matches against Team USA. LeBron James, who will carry the flag for the men at the opening ceremonies in Paris on Friday, saving Team USA in the exhibition match on Saturday. And where we start this second hour, WNBA All-Star Game, the rare format change this year because of the Summer Olympics starting in just a little bit. It was Team USA versus the WNBA All-Stars, and Team WNBA had the upper hand once again. 117-109. The WNBA All-Stars victorious, winning outright as a 5.5-point underdog. A total of 192 and a hook in the desert goes well over. It is the second straight victory for the WNBA All-Stars against Team USA, dating back to 2021 when they did this as well. A statement made perhaps by those that were spurned. Caitlin Clark, Arike Ogunbowale, the two biggest Olympic snubs, have a huge night on Saturday, as does fellow rookie with Clark, that being Angel Reese, a double-double. Plenty of reactions, but first the conversation, Donnie. Should we be concerned about Team USA heading to Paris? Did they leave a couple of players that would have made an impact off the roster?
Yeah, this can't happen. Well, what we saw in that All-Star game, that can't happen. Like, there wasn't really a handicap last week, but we were joking on the Friday show. At least I was like, wait a second, 5.5. So let me get this straight. I think I picked the 10 best players in my league to play the rest of the league, and the 10 best players can't beat the rest of the league. And also, when we talk about the rest of the league, yes, they are fantastic players. Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. They're still rookies here. You got players out that have been dominating in the WNBA, and I don't want to hear, like, what's the excuse? Well, Team USA hasn't played together that much. What, the WNBA All-Stars play with each other each and every weekend and get ready for this game? No, they don't either. And by the way, tuning in early in that game to watch, like, okay, it's a close game. When I tuned in late, I actually got confused by the scoring, because I looked at it and said, okay, Team USA, WNBA, like, oh, that's right. I said, wait a second. No. I read the score backwards. How is Team like WNBA beating the All-Star team, beating Team USA? I couldn't even believe when I saw that when it came through. Now, yes, could it be a wake-up call for Team USA? I don't know what type of wake-up call we're getting, but that is so embarrassing, because you had all of this, like, oh, you left Reese off, you left Caitlin Clark. Yeah, but they're rookies. They're not nearly as good as these veterans, and they go out there and pound Team USA. So I was just, looking at that final score and being absolutely shocked. When should I be? I don't know, but that was my feeling, Ben, watching it.
So here's the X's and O's, the black and white of what was happening, right? Just making it very matter of fact. The WNBA All-Stars probably just a peg behind Team USA, right, in its roster construction. There is no doubt that those two teams, if they were both going to go to the Olympics, Team USA 1, Team USA 2, they would play in the gold medal match. There is not a doubt. The Team USA right now to win a gold medal, minus 1,800. Team USA is minus 1,800 to win its 8th consecutive gold medal. They have won 7 straight gold medals as of this moment, dating back to 1996. There is no doubt that Team USA is going to win the gold medal in women's basketball at the Paris Olympic Games. There is no doubt in my mind that Team WNBA All-Stars would win a silver medal if they were, in fact, a peg behind Team USA. But with all the conversation and conjecture about Caitlin Clark being left off, about Angel Reese not making the roster, or Arike Ogunbowale, you got to come out and show it. And Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, who is also the head coach of the U.S. women's basketball team, that has been rather poignant in her statements about why Caitlin Clark was left off. The head of the Olympic Committee for women's basketball saying we didn't do this based on a popularity contest, but the actual roster construction, you got to come out and prove it. And in fact, I think Caitlin Clark, Arike Ogunbowale, and Angel Reese proved it. Donnie, Team USA was trapping down double digits in the final 2 minutes of an all-star game, but rather an exhibition match to try to make it a contest at the end, to not suffer the utter disappointment and embarrassment that they felt. You saw after the game, Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, pissed, angry about how things occurred. And now we go back to the stats to show the historic night. Arike Ogunbowale, a lot of people pointed to Caitlin Clark being left off the roster early on. I know Arike Ogunbowale rejected an invite to even be a part of the team, but a lot of people looked at Arike Ogunbowale at that time of U.S. roster selection and said, she's the true snub. She's leading the WNBA in scoring. This was the time when Clark was struggling in her rookie year. She sets an all-star game record, scoring 34 points, hitting 8 threes, all 34 points, Donnie, in the second half. her second consecutive All-Star Game MVP award, also taking home the hardware last year. Angel Reese becomes the first rookie in All-Star Game history in the W to record a double-double. Caitlin Clark, the fourth player ever to record double-digit dimes in an All-Star Game. 8+ was plus 172. She was one shy of Sue Bird's record of 11 for the All-Star Game, most we have ever seen in the assist category. The first rookie to record 10 or more assists in an All-Star Game. They showed out in Phoenix on Saturday night, making Team USA look a little bit foolish.
Yes, they did. And also from a whole Team USA perspective, men's and women's, could have been a disastrous weekend. If it's not like when you look at, Ben, you line up the rosters and you say, okay, they're going to play Australia. Talk about the men's here for a second. They're going to play some other decent competition along the way, Serbia. Like you saw South Sudan, it was like, well, they probably going to win that game back when like the Dream Team was winning in 1992, like 132-64 is what it felt like it probably could be. And quite frankly, pulling out a victory late in that one, so tough scene, which sometimes you need a wake-up call before you actually get to the finals, or should I say the medal rounds or the knockout stages. And maybe they even came before the Olympics, where it's like, we can't just roll a basketball out here and win things. Talking about the men's and the women's team. Should be fun to watch how they respond, but I wasn't shocked by both of those results this weekend. Not a good look for USA basketball.
And Caitlin Clark herself said it very well. Did this kind of reignite a fire into you that you were left off the roster? She said, no, the Americans are going to be fine. I will be rooting them on in Paris. And she's right. Team USA is minus 1,800 to win a gold medal. They have won 7 consecutive gold medals dating back to the 1996 Summer Games. They're a 20.5-point favorite in their opener against Japan. They will be dominant, but a wake-up call this weekend in Phoenix, indeed. More TEL next.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Next up is Tampa, who was very impressive last year with Baker Mayfield, Evans. They hooked up a ton, and they've already shown what they can do, but they're picking this team, the Falcons, over them. Explain that to me.
Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Where a couple years ago, you really wondered if he finished his career as a Buck, but the Bucks wanted him to do that, and he's going to do that. He signed a 2-year deal for about $21 million a year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They scored well. They defended like crap. Last game, they struggled to score. They defended great. We still have not seen the best out of USA basketball. So they've shown they've won different ways. They still should win absolutely the gold medal. But they're playing with fire a little bit with their play, especially when you get to the medal round and it only takes is 1 game to lose.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
A face you see all across the SportsGrid network all week long, but especially this major championship weekend in Scotland. Charlie Hulme, the co-host of The Smiley Show, the producer of The Smiley Show, is back at it with us live right here on this Monday to look back at the 152nd Open, Xander Schauffele's triumph for a second time this year in the world of golf, and what remains this season ahead with the Paris Olympics on deck over there in France. Charlie, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us here. An immensely great job, my friend, hosting In-Game Live over the weekend for those In-Game Live wagering experiences throughout the Open. A great guest list on both Saturday and Sunday. Kudos to you, and thank you for joining us to recap it all.
I love being here always, guys, and thanks so much for the kind words. It was a lot of fun hanging out, watching golf, talking golf, getting up early. And now it's post Open Championship week. It's 3 a.m. We can all sleep in, take naps, do whatever we'd like to. We got all the early wake ups out of the way. So it was a really, really fun week and cool to be a part of the coverage here on SportsGrid.
A hefty nap and you catching some Z's, I hope, is coming your way at a later point this afternoon. But Charlie, you were live for a historic final round yesterday at Royal Troon, the 152nd playing of the Open Championship, and a final round 65 for the second time in a final round of a major championship this year that culminates in a victory for Xander Schauffele. He wins the Open, the champion golfer of the year at 9 under par. Charlie, we talked about this as we led off the show with this conversation in our opening hour. Entering this year, the knock against Xander, he could not win a major championship. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Runner-up finishes, top 10 finishes. He was always around the top of the leaderboard, but never the champion when all was said and done on a Sunday afternoon. But yesterday, like we saw at Valhalla, the stones to get it done on Sunday. What changed this year for Xander Schauffele, and what did you see yesterday at the Open?
Well, I think the first place to start is a lot of people held some skepticism around that win at Valhalla just because that major championship, the score we saw there didn't necessarily feel like a major championship. If you wanted any sort of validation of Xander Schauffele's greatness, going out and doing it at Royal Troon in these conditions, these weeks, that's all the validation Xander needs, that I am a legitimate major championship. And, you know, it is wild to think we start this year, he's probably the best player to never win a major holding that sort of label. And then he wins 2 in his last 3 tries. Truly amazing stuff from a guy who's got all the talent in the world. The big difference this year, to me, is the ball speed and the distance he's gained. He did a ton of speed training in the offseason. Xander's always been one of the steadiest, one of the most consistent players on tour. He is phenomenally straight. He is a great iron player. He is an incredibly consistent putter. But the X factor now has been he is absolutely roasting the golf ball off the tee, and he's got less club into a lot of these greens than his peers. And I think, to me, that is where you start gaining a real scoring advantage. If you can still hit it straight, but you're also, gaining 5, 10, 15 yards, huge difference maker. So for me, I think that's the leap he's made. And I think, it to me, like, juxtapose Xander against Scottie Scheffler yesterday, where Scottie is, maybe the best ball striker we've seen since Tiger Woods. And they're right at the top there in that strokes gained approach category. But Scottie's struggling again with the putter. And Xander's formula now is looking better and better and better. It's just consistency. It's top-tier elite consistency, and it's a lot of fun to watch.
Charlie, talk to me about this, because Xander Schauffele is certainly an American golfer. Used to playing on the PGA Tour, pristine conditions on a week-to-week basis, a different mindset per se. Then you go over to the Open Championship and talk about it as a golfer, saying, look, this isn't a round. Let's just say one of those Saturday rounds where it's high winds and the rains are coming in. What is the mentality of the golfer change from, like, hey, I'm used to driving 300 yards down the middle, playing an iron in close and maybe 2-putting or making a birdie, to now, I don't even know what I'm going to hit from tee to tee here. Those adjustments you have to make so hard, I would imagine.
I absolutely agree, Donnie. And I think that there are a couple things that come to mind there. Well, first is the relationship you have with your caddy. He's got a great one in Austin Kaiser. And just going in and you might have a game plan coming in, but you got to commit to knowing that game plan is going to change, and it could change frequently, and it could change during the round. And so I think that those guys did a great job of plotting their way around this golf course, of eliminating the big numbers, and then putting himself in position to make putts and get into the red numbers and move up that leaderboard. And that's exactly what they did. He hung around, was right there in contention on Sunday, and then, blitzes the back nine where the wind was in in a more favorable direction, and when it actually settled down a little bit. And, in the same way that the weather would change on a dime, we went from a crowded leaderboard with arguably 5 guys that could have won to him putting the thing to bed with 2 or 3 holes left for the leaders group. It was wild.
Yeah. It really was. And emerging out of a pack, there were 7 golfers a stroke behind Billy Horschel, who was the leader after round number 3. For Xander Schauffele to get it done, 11-1 pre-tournament, third best price, a plus 330 number yesterday. Charlie Hulme, Xander Schauffele, is one of 7 golfers in the history of men's golf to win 2 major championships in the same season and finish top 10 in the other 2, joining a list that features Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Tom Watson, Tiger Woods, and Jordan Spieth. Now, we're coming up on the final minute of this segment, so we can continue the conversation on the other side. But I asked Donnie this question. I ask you the same one. Who had the better year in golf? Was it Scottie Scheffler and his dominant run, or Xander Schauffele, a major champion twice?
This just got very, very intriguing. Here's the other wrinkle in that, all right? We're coming up to the FedEx Cup playoffs. Nobody plays better at the Tour Championship at Eastlake than Xander Schauffele. So if we come down the stretch and Scotty's got a 2-shot lead, as it looks like he will, on Xander going into that week in Atlanta, those 2 dueling coming down the stretch is going to be appointment television. I cannot wait to see that happen. And I think if Xander wins the Tour Championship, he's my player of the year. If you win 2 majors and a Tour Championship, Scotty's had a phenomenal year, won a ton of signature events and a major, but that resume to me is better than what Scotty put together this season.
Championships matter more. It's just a matter of fact in this conversation. Charlie joins us for a second consecutive segment to round out the 4 major championships this year, but a gold medal still at stake in the upcoming few days in Paris. We break down Olympic golf up next.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Next up is Tampa, who was very impressive last year with Baker Mayfield, Evans. They hooked up a ton, and they've already shown what they can do, but they're picking this team, the Falcons, over them. Explain that to me.
Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Where a couple years ago, you really wondered if he finished his career as a Buck, but the Bucks wanted him to do that, and he's going to do that. He signed a 2-year deal for about $21 million a year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They scored well. They defended like crap. Last game, they struggled to score. They defended great. We still have not seen the best out of USA basketball. So they've shown they've won different ways. They still should win absolutely the gold medal. But they're playing with fire a little bit with their play, especially when you get to the medal round, and it only takes is 1 game to lose.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Yesterday was the final round of the fourth and final major championship this year in men's golf. Xander Schauffele takes two of them, the PGA Championship, the Open Championship. It was Scottie Scheffler that started his dominant run with his second green jacket in the past 3 seasons at Augusta National, at the Masters, and of course Bryson DeChambeau at the United States Open, and Charlie Hulme's neck of the woods down there in North Carolina. So those are the 4 major winners. American men in all 4 for the first time since 1982. But one of the stories this year, Charlie, in major championship golf was the U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau's triumph and Rory McIlroy's disaster down the stretch. Of course, missing 2 4-footers in his final 3 holes that cost him an opportunity at the United States Open. As we shared entering this week, if he did not win at the Open, the decade-long drought in major championships would continue to an 11th year. Rory missed the cut, did not even play the weekend at Royal Troon. What's the issue for Rory? What has been plaguing McIlroy from getting back in the winner's circle at a major championship?
You know, it is such an interesting case, and it was just wild to me to hear the comments he made on Friday after missing the cut, where there's this duality of Rory where you love his honesty and his transparency and his humanness, really. It's like you don't come to expect that all the time from these elite athletes that are so carefully managed by their teams and won't say anything controversial in the press. And being on the media side of things, you know, you hear a guy say, yeah, I was 22 holes in and I was thinking about where I was going to go on vacation. It's startling to hear that from a guy that, you know, is the second ranked player in the world, you know, or second or third, I'm sorry, but second shortest odds to win this tournament. And so for me, it was just strange the whole week for Rory. You know, it should have been one where he was a good course fit. You know, where he's used to these sort of links conditions and has won Open championships before. So it should have been a week where he could have broken that streak and bounced back from that U.S. Open loss in a way that was convincing and kind of got people believing in his talent again. But instead, we're left with a miscut and sort of wondering what the future holds for him. I mean, I think that as strange as it might sound, because the guy's got all the talent in the world. It just pops off the page and off the TV screen when you watch him. But this week to me was a mentality thing, and I'm not so certain that it's just a boiling over of the loss at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst and also just some of the off-course stuff with him. Like it's been difficult in so many ways for Rory the last couple of years. Some of it in his control, some of it out of his control. The whole, you know, negotiations with Liv and the PIF and the way the tour has used him as sort of a figurehead. So I give him a pass on some of that stuff. And the critique of his caddy and game strategy, all that type of stuff. It's a very complex thing, and he's just got to get his head right, because it's just he should be winning majors at this point in time, and he has the talent to go out and do it no matter how old he's starting to get into his mid to late 30s. But it's just a strange headspace thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, you take a look at this, Charlie, too, because you look at Rory McIlroy, 35 years old. He's got another decade to be in his prime and win contest here. The issue that we have now is Tiger Woods. He's not in his prime. He doesn't have another 10 years. And we had you on last week, and I think your thought process was right. It wasn't as if we expected Tiger Woods to win anything this weekend, but if there was a golf tournament, he should be able to be competitive and maybe make it to the weekend. This should have been one. Tiger Woods, plus 14, misses the cut. The future certainly not as bright as it once was, even a couple years ago, where we thought he could come back and sort of make a run and say, could he catch lightning in a bottle? I don't know how much lightning's left to get in the bottle now, Charlie.
It's a tough one to watch, and you hate it when Colin Montgomery says something as edgy as he did, and he gets proven right in a way. And I'm not going to go that far. I will never, ever doubt Tiger until he tells us, hey, I'm hanging it up. But, I mean, you just flash the scores up there, and the one that's actually the most interesting to me is the one where he made the cut, where the Masters, he finished 60th, but look at the scores here. It's his worst score to par of all the 4 majors. And to me, it's like, that's our best case scenario, right? Is that he makes the cut at majors and then he just shoots $1 million on the weekend, because it's such a tough physical test. And so it's really up to Tiger. He can hang around as long as he wants. He brings a lot of eyeballs to the telecast, and I am completely fine with him playing in this as poorly as he has been playing. But at a certain point in time, he's got to make a decision for himself. And the optimism I hold is I think he's going to play some Champs Tour events, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. 3 rounds in a cart and Tiger playing with his peers from back in the day, I think that's going to be a great watch.
Maybe that's our hope for Tiger Woods, because at the major championships, not so much. We'll talk Olympic golf. It's not even this weekend. It's next weekend over in France, so we have plenty of time. And Charlie Hulme, now please go take a nap and rest up. We appreciate all the time this weekend at the Open Championship. More TEL to come.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Next up is Tampa, who was very impressive last year with Baker Mayfield, Evans. They hooked up a ton, and they've already shown what they can do, but they're picking this team, the Falcons, over them. Explain that to me.
Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Where a couple years ago, you really wondered if he finished his career as a Buck, but the Bucs wanted him to do that, and he's going to do that. He signed a 2-year deal for about $21 million a year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They scored well. They defended like crap. Last game, they struggled to score. They defended great. We still have not seen the best out of USA basketball. So they've shown they've won different ways. They still should win absolutely the gold medal. But they're playing with fire a little bit with their play, especially when you get to the medal round, and it only takes is one game to lose.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
In its 4th of 5 exhibition matches to get ready for the Paris Olympic Games, it was the one that by far was the most questionable for Team USA. As opening ceremonies in Paris are Friday evening, and LeBron James will carry the men's flag for Team USA out of all the Olympians that will represent the U.S., we get you ready for Olympic basketball here in the next half hour, live on this Monday on the early line. Bryan Fonseca joins us here on this Monday on TEL to look at the 4th exhibition match against South Sudan in the near shocker, or perhaps it was just a shocker regardless of the final score. The 5th and final one against Germany today in London, and all that awaits over when the Olympic Games officially begin this weekend in Paris. Bryan, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday morning.
Yes, thank you for having me. Love international basketball. You guys know this. Was all over the World Cup last year and doing my best to be all over the Olympics again.
And we shall see how it plays out, because if there was any questions, if you could poke holes in the resume for the Americans at all, we saw them on display on Saturday afternoon against South Sudan, 101-100. Team USA survives at the very end. In the final 10 seconds, it was LeBron James giving the Americans that 1-point lead. But South Sudan had multiple opportunities near the buzzer, unable to convert. To call it a close call, that's one thing, Fonseca, but it leads to many questions. Let's start with the exhibition match itself. How did this happen? How was it only a 1-point victory against South Sudan?
Got off to a slow start against a team that I think is better than people realize. Luol Deng is credited with really turning this program into a legitimate program. South Sudan, which is the best in all of Africa at this point, taking the mantle from Nigeria, who beat the United States in the scrimmage before the Olympics in 2021. This is actually progress from where the United States were before the last Olympics, because they had lost to Nigeria, they had lost to Australia back-to-back times, and then finally got it together, and even lost in group play, which we can get into. But, South Sudan is a legit team. They're one of the worst teams in the Olympics, but that's because the Olympics only has 12 teams. This is a tournament that it's really hard to get into, and South Sudan qualified by being the best performing team from the African regions. So you have like Wayne Gabriel, who's been in the NBA. Nuni Omot was once a Nets G Leaguer who was an Exhibit 10 guy. Mario Shayok, who had a cup of coffee in the NBA at one point. Carlick Jones was a Chicago Bulls two-way. Like, there's talent on this team. And Royal Ivey is a really good coach who's an NBA assistant, who was a longtime point guard, who could be an NBA head coach at some point. And South Sudan, when they were in the World Cup last year, they gave my Puerto Ricans some problems. Almost beat Puerto Rico in the first game of the World Cup. That went to overtime. And, they had a good showing despite being knocked out early. So South Sudan is good. They shouldn't be doing this to Team USA. And I think it's just one of these things where people have to realize, like, this isn't the NBA. If anything, this is closer to March Madness, because there's a group stage and then you have just a tournament from there. So it's a cross between, I guess, the playoffs and March Madness, but it's closer to March Madness than I think people realize. And these things happen.
Brian, we're going to get to the Olympics and also obviously the tune-up today between USA and Germany, but give me a synopsis here of this exhibitions that we're seeing from Team USA. What have you gotten out of it? Are we settling on a starting lineup? Are you impressed more with a certain player than the other ones? Or maybe you see a player that should be playing more that's not getting enough playing time at this point right now with Team USA?
Bam Adebayo should be starting over Joel Embiid. I don't think Joel Embiid, his placement on this team doesn't make a ton of sense, just from the standpoint of, like, you got French citizenship to play for France, and then you turn around and play for Team USA, and now people in France are going to probably boo you when you show up in the Olympics, given the scathing things that have come out since then. And that's a whole ordeal that you should Google. Like, it's not a pretty sight, considering how long it takes for people to get French citizenship. And Joel Embiid was able to just get it because he's an amazing basketball player, and then turn around and started to play for Team USA anyway, despite originally being from Cameroon regardless. So you have that, and then the element of him starting on this team where, this is a team that's going to be amazing. It's great. It's one of the best collections of basketball players that we've seen on Team USA in terms of resume, even though some guys are a little bit older. But why is he in the starting lineup when really he should probably be coming off the bench, and you should monitor his minutes? And the reason why I think Bam should be there is because of what we saw in the last Olympics, where he's the guy who's going to hold it down defensively, that you can throw on. He's honestly, probably the best defensive player on this team, and that includes Anthony Davis. And the minutes that him and Anthony Davis play together actually look really well. But Bam just makes more sense, especially if you want to go offense heavy. Like, the starting lineup that we saw against South Sudan was Drew Holiday, Stephen Curry, Devin Booker, LeBron James, and Joel Embiid. And I just don't think that that's really your best starting five that you could put out there that makes the most sense. I would like to see Bam take the spot of Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid come off the bench and just wreak havoc on second units, perhaps along with Anthony Edwards. And I get why Drew Holiday's starting in that game against South Sudan, but I'm not sure he needs to be starting either.
So, Fonseca, you mentioned it. In the tune-ups to the 2020 Olympic Games, of course, played during the 2021 summer over there in Tokyo, we lost to Australia in the tune-ups. We lost to Nigeria. So based on what you have seen in the 4 exhibition matches so far for the Americans, are you truly concerned? Are there any grave issues that would keep Team USA from winning a gold medal in Paris?
I try not to put too much into the scrimmages because, they're different. You're tinkering with things. You're playing even deeper rotations than you will in the actual Olympic Games, which, the rotations are going to be deep because it's international basketball. There's fewer timeouts. It's a different flow, things of that nature. When you watch, like, European basketball, a lot of the top minutes guys on other teams play like 25-ish minutes a game, 26 minutes a game. Part of that is because the games are 40 minutes like we're going to see in the Olympics now. But part of that is also because there are fewer timeouts and the rotations could go 10, 11 deep, maybe even longer than that, depending on the coach. So the concern is there just because, like, should they be minus 430 against the field or whatever the price is right now? Maybe. But am I looking at, hey, Europe as a continent to win the Olympics at plus 500 as an interesting bet? Yeah, because one, they have 5 teams in the Olympics out of the 12. But 2, you're getting like France, who is the host, who adds Victor Wembanyama, Bilal Coulibaly. You're getting Germany, who won the World Cup. You're getting, Spain, who has a great resume. You're getting Greece, who has Giannis. And obviously you're getting Serbia, who is going to be in Team USA's group. Team USA's group, luckily for them, is not very strong. Like, again, I love the Puerto Rican national team, but Team USA should beat them down. South Sudan is in there. I feel like they kind of had their shot. And, they're a team that has high highs and low lows. So Team USA might smack them in the rematch. We'll see. And then Team USA versus Serbia is really the question there. But even if they lose the game, which they did against France in group play last time, they could still move on into the quarterfinals, have a decent matchup, and win. So losing one of the games would be the end of the world. You would just ideally want it to be Serbia, if anybody, but they had an easy time handling Serbia the first time. So I think they'd be fine in that matchup.
So, Fonseca, only 1 minute left in this segment. We'll get to plenty more around Olympic basketball in just a moment. But today in London, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the 5th and final exhibition game for Team USA ahead of the Paris Olympics against Germany. Here are the numbers. We'll look at them now. We'll get the breakdown from Fonseca on the other side of the break. It is a 14.5-point spread, now live and updated on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and over-under at 189 and a hook. Fonseca, look at the numbers. Donnie, right side, look at the numbers.
Yep.
We'll talk about the final exhibition match and then the path for Team USA at the Paris Olympics to win a gold medal. That will be our conversation. Up next here on the early line on the Sports Grid Network. Are we concerned? Is it just a tune-up for a reason? More to come on PEL next.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Next up is Tampa, who was very impressive last year with Baker Mayfield, Evans. They hooked up a ton, and they've already shown what they can do, but they're picking this team, the Falcons, over them. Explain that to me.
Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Where a couple years ago, you really wondered if he finished his career as a Buck, but the Bucks wanted him to do that, and he's going to do that. He signed a 2-year deal for about $21 million a year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They scored well. They defended like crap. Last game, they struggled to score. They defended great. We still have not seen the best out of USA basketball. So they've shown they've won different ways. They still should win absolutely the gold medal. But they're playing with fire a little bit with their play, especially when you get to the medal round and it only takes is one game to lose.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
One last exhibition match before the real thing starts this weekend in Paris for Team USA. The Americans take on Germany today as a 14.5-point favorite in London with a total of 189 and a hook. Bryan Fonseca back for a second consecutive segment. We showed you the odds for the fifth and final exhibition match in Team USA's tune-up for the Summer Olympic Games. Again, updated number, now 14.5 in favor of Team USA. Fonseca, it was a scare against South Sudan. What do you want to see from Team USA in its final exhibition match before the Paris Olympics?
Yeah, you get the sense that they're going to treat this more like the actual dress rehearsal as opposed to, hey, this is the last preseason game. Let's just rest everyone and play like, Nigel Hayes, for example. I don't think they're going to go that route. And Germany, they're the defending world champions. They won the World Cup in 2023. So I think Team USA is going to particularly want to showcase themselves in this one, which has me looking at that minus 15.5 and thinking about it. But, it's also scrimmage, so you don't quite know. What I want to see is, again, like them have a set rotation and see what that looks like. What are they going to commit to before the games actually start? Because after Germany, they're starting with Serbia. So you're immediately going into Nikola Jokic and a team that finished second in the World Cup last time in 2023 that lost to Germany, but again, did not have Nikola Jokic. Also did not have Vasily Micic, who is now on the Serbian national team as well. So I think with Germany, it's an interesting game because they have a bunch of players coming back from that World Cup championship team. Dennis Schroeder in particular, Franz and Mo Wagner, Daniel Theis. So this is a good team. And Team USA, has to basically treat this like this is the real deal now. Not that they weren't before, but now the Olympics are basically starting at this point.
Bryan, if we take a look at the Olympics as a whole and start to focus on Team USA, you take a look at LeBron James, who is going to carry the flag for the United States during the opening ceremony. The reason I'm asking you this, is he the alpha dog on this team? When we look late in the basketball game, is he the go-to guy, and who, in your opinion, should be the go-to guy here?
I think he is because he's the executive producer on the documentary they're inevitably going to air after this ends. Like he's absolutely he's the alpha here. He's the one that I think is at least in part responsible for putting this together, right? I think he's the reason it seems that way from reporting that, they got Anthony Davis, they got Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant is back. These are guys that typically at this stage of their career don't really need to be doing this. And LeBron James coming back into the Olympics now at the stage of his career that he's in is pretty shocking. I think he's the alpha in terms of that. He's unquestionably the leader, the captain. I think the fact that he's going to be the flag bearer is actually really, really cool. And something that people should know. A men's basketball player hasn't had this honor for Team USA ever. Yeah. So that, and this was, I think, voted on by fellow Olympians as well. So that's also pretty awesome. But in late game situations, I feel like offensively, they may play through him. I think Kevin Durant may put up the most shots, though. I get the sense, from an offensive standpoint. And that's probably how you would want to devise it anyway, because Kevin Durant, is one of the best scorers ever. And in Olympic play, he's basically the best scorer that Team USA's ever had.
So, Fonseca, when you look at the odds perspective, because you shared it a few times, we've talked about it during the break, Team USA is still a hefty favorite to win a gold medal, despite moving back in the market ever so slightly after the poor performance against South Sudan on Saturday. Minus 430, updated numbers as of this Monday morning, minus 400. Canada, second best price at 10-1. France and Serbia tied for the third best number now, again updated on FanDuel at 15-1. Who is the best test that Team USA will see either in group play or during the medal round at the Paris Olympics?
It's Serbia first because we know they're going to see Serbia. And then from there, we have to sort of see what happens in the group of death, which is Group A, which is Canada, Greece, Australia, and Spain. And I think 3 of those teams could advance into the next round. It's entirely possible, I would say even likely, given the structure of the other 2 groups, that 3 teams do advance. So to me, we'll have to see what happens there. Canada's getting a lot of love because they're top-end NBA talent, and they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, just to name a couple of guys. But their team is absolutely loaded. They just won a bronze medal at the World Cup with a bunch of these same guys in 2023. They're going to get a lot of hype. I think they're going to have a more difficult time in group play than people realize because Australia is really good. They're experienced, and they got a bronze medal in the last Olympics. And a lot of that core is coming back, and it was their first bronze medal in the Olympics. So that's something that they're going to be playing off of in terms of momentum and things of that nature. And then you have just elsewhere. France just bombed in the World Cup. I thought that they were good enough to win the whole thing, and they were the first team eliminated basically because Canada smacked them down. And then they lost again to Latvia. France is adding Victor Wembanyama and Bilal Coulibaly to their roster. This is a dangerous, dangerous team. So we'll have to see where Team USA stands afterwards, whether they're going to run into a Canada, whether they're going to run into France, whether they're going to run into potentially Germany, if they're going to see Greece and Giannis at any point, Australia. There's a lot out there. But for now, it's Serbia because we know they're going to play Serbia. That's the first game in the Olympics, and that's one that, while they're favored by double digits, Serbia is really good, and they have the basketball pedigree. These are two programs that faced each other in the Olympics before in a gold medal game in 2016, where I think Nikola Jokic was coming off the bench. So that's the first test.
Team USA, a hefty favorite to win Group C at minus 1,200. But you mentioned the Olympic opener against the Serbians. It's a 16.5-point spread for the Americans against Nikola Jokic and his national team. Quickly here, Fonseca, 40 seconds left in this segment. How will you approach the large spreads that Team USA will see pretty much in every game at the Summer Olympics?
I think going back to the Serbia game, it probably starts with how they perform in that one. And I also need to see, Puerto Rico is going to play South Sudan. We're going to get informed as to what the spread is going to be afterwards, because then Team USA is going to have Puerto Rico and South Sudan. So it's going to be difficult to cover those really, really big numbers because, things happen late in games or whatever the case may be. But Team USA has had some big blowout wins before, so I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again.
We shall see. Some Summer League talk with the rookies up next on the Early Line.
Where are you at in terms of a starting lineup, what you want to see from Team USA?
I think he'll get guys involved, and then there's your lockdown defender at the point guard, the point of attack, right? I do like Curry. I would then go with Ant. I like Ant over Booker. I think if you look at the way the Canada game was, they looked kind of slow starting, and then they kind of got rolling.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
The staple of consistency within the AFC North, that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. 17 years under Mike Tomlin, never a losing record, never less than 8 wins.
You add Patrick Queen there over from your division rival. You take a look at that offensive line, which does have some question marks, but still a decent wide receiving core that they have, a running game that has Najee Harris, and a quarterback that's been there, done that.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Next up is Tampa, who was very impressive last year with Baker Mayfield, Evans. They hooked up a ton, and they've already shown what they can do, but they're picking this team, the Falcons, over them. Explain that to me.
Baker Mayfield's back. Mike Evans is back. Where a couple years ago, you really wondered if he finished his career as a Buck, but the Bucks wanted him to do that, and he's going to do that. He signed a 2-year deal for about $21 million a year.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
They scored well. They defended like crap. Last game, they struggled to score. They defended great. We still have not seen the best out of USA basketball. So they've shown they've won different ways. They still should win absolutely the gold medal. But they're playing with fire a little bit with their play, especially when you get to the medal round and it only takes is one game to lose.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Tonight in Las Vegas, Sin City, the site of the NBA 2K25 Summer League Championship game between the two unbeaten teams left standing, the Memphis Grizzlies and the Miami Heat. The Grizz a 2.5-point favorite. The over-under 187 and a hook. But outside of who wins a title as a team in the summer, it's a time, Bryan Fonseca, to look at how we expect the rookies to perform at this next level. Zach Edey should be in the game tonight for Memphis. He is the Rookie of the Year favorite entering the 2024-25 NBA campaign at a 6-1 number. Reed Sheppard of the Houston Rockets has had a great summer in Las Vegas, 7-1 the price. Zachary Rizache, of course, the number one overall pick to the Hawks, the third best number at 8-1. Then the group you see there with 10-1 numbers. From what you have seen in Summer League and what you anticipate in regular basketball come October, how do you evaluate those Rookie of the Year odds in the association?
Because this rookie class wasn't an exceptionally awesome one, it's difficult to project who's going to walk into just big minutes right away, if it's going to be anybody in particular. Zach Edey, you see the sort of pathway for him to play at least regular minutes. Is it going to be enough for him to actually become the Rookie of the Year, which he's favored to be, which is kind of wild to me considering where the polarization of Zach Edey was leading into the draft. Reed Sheppard is really good, it looks like, but the pathway to minutes there in Houston, like, that's a crowded team. That's a crowded team that wants to win also. Like, they actually have ambitions of making the playoffs, getting playoff revenue. They have Alperen Sengun, who has a contract decision looming. They have Jalen Green, who has a contract decision looming, things that they're going to have to figure out after the season. And you also have, like, Jabari Smith. Where is he going to be in his development? Fred VanVleet's still there. Dylan Brooks is still there. We'll see what happens with the rest. But, like, it's going to be hard for Reed Sheppard to walk into, like, big minutes right away. We assume he'll be in the rotation and get regular minutes, but what kind of Rookie of the Year is this going to be? Is this going to be a year where somebody walks in and looks like a potential all-star, or is it going to be kind of like 2016-17 where Malcolm Brogdon won Rookie of the Year because he was the best of a group that didn't seem particularly great?
Taking a look here at the 2025 NBA championship odds here, the Celtics, and to the victors go the spoils. That is true. Everybody seems like they're getting paid on the Celtics. They're a 3-1 price to win it. The Thunder, the Nuggets, and then the Sixers and the Knicks, maybe the biggest movers here in the offseason. How are we shaping up 2025 in the championship race for you, Bryan?
Yeah, this is another market where it's like, and long shots don't historically like win it, but there's another one where I'm just looking at like, man, I would just want long shots at this point because I don't feel the need to bet the Celtics at plus 300. It's a price I can get
for sure
later on. And especially if they start off and it's a little bit dicey because Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out for at least the first couple months, maybe even deeper than that into the NBA season. So that there's no reason for me to take the Celtics at that point. And it's also very hard to repeat as champions. So there's that element of it as too. Jason Tatum is in the Olympics. What happens there? Drew Holiday is in the Olympics. What happens there, et cetera. Memphis is a team like as a long shot, maybe they're worth a sprinkle. They're in the thousands. They're going to try to be on a redemption tour. Their roster quietly performed, like the depth guys performed pretty well in the absence of damn near everybody last year. And they're getting back damn near everybody this year. And also adding Zach Edey. Like I like Memphis as a long shot. I don't actually think they're going to be holding up the trophy at the end of the year. But the organization is ambitious, and when you're taking these long shot futures, you have to bet on, hey, who might make a move between now and February to sort of increase their chances. John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Desmond Bane, but also they have bench players that they develop like Gigi Jackson Jr. and Vince Williams Jr., or who you could sort of shape the rest of your playoff rotation around.
40-1, the price on the Memphis Grizzlies, tied with Orlando for the 11th best number entering next year to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the NBA. Of course, last year was highlighted first by the 25-game suspension for John Morant at the start of a season ago, then the injury not long after his return, and then everybody got injured in the grind city. But the Grizzlies were the number 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs each of the prior 2 seasons in the NBA. A good look very early on from Bryan Fonseca, who has been here for 3 consecutive segments. So we thank him now for his time. Fonseca, we appreciate the time. I'm sure we'll talk during Olympic basketball as well.
Absolutely. Anytime.
We appreciate it. The opening ceremonies start on Friday. LeBron James carrying the flag for the U.S. in the opening ceremonies. The third ever basketball player, the first men's basketball player, Sue Bird, Dawn Staley, got the honor for women's basketball a few years prior. Hour 3 starts next.